Hello Internet! I wanted to make a video showcasing this build that I've been working on for about 7 months now, and I think I'm at a place where I'm really happy with it. This is my retro console shelf setup, and I'm going to go over how all the cables are wired and managed as kind of a source of documentation for future me and any other curious cats out there. So I will put links to everything in the description of where I got them. It's very, very hard to find a good shelving unit for consoles. A lot of things that you see online is people recommending the IKEA Kellex shelving units. They're kind of like box, they're very modular, and those are very good. The thing is with my entertainment set and kind of the general vibe of my home, something very white or black, it looked kind of cheap, and I wanted something that was more dark wood, dark oak color. So this one I found very luckily. I'm gonna go ahead and take these controller hangers off. I'll lay them over here so that you can see this better. So the way it works is there are shelf inserts. There are small little studs, metal studs that you can put in these holes, and that's how you line up your shelves. It's very adjustable, so I've given my Switch a little bit more room for docking it. And then also I have made it less so for the PS4 and the classic mini SNES, because those don't require a lot of room. And the discs are loaded on the PS4 just from the middle. And then I tried to give my GameCube a little bit of room, but I did not account for the Game Boy Advanced player. So it does open, but it hits the roof just a little bit. So that's the construction of the shelves. As you can see on the side, there is plenty of space for cable management. Actually, there's some things that I don't even need in here. So as you can see, there is tons and tons and tons of room. It's very deep to manage all of your cables so that they are not very visible when you're looking straight on at it. And actually, when you look on the sides, you don't really see the cables. And then in the very back, what I have done is I have mounted against the back all of my power strips for my power supply for all of the consoles, as well as two high quality, I believe they're rated for 4K HDMI auto switchers, and then a scanline converter that I have had a lot of issues with finding a good scanline converter, but this one so far hasn't broken. But the one, I had two earlier ones, and one was non-functional and one was broken. So definitely don't run into, if you're getting into retro gaming, don't run to get a scanline converter. Just immediately learn a little bit about it. Down here I have the main power. This box I found on Amazon. It was just perfect for what I needed. There was some very curious cats that kept turning off the power switch for this whole thing, and it went to the TV and everything. So what I did is I just bought this little box here, and it opens up, and you can store power lines, cables very nice and neatly, and there's grooves in the slide for cable management. I'm gonna go ahead and move this over just a little bit so that I can get a better view of the back. And then the only other things I have is on top, I have a charger for Nintendo Switch controllers and Joy-Cons. I have one of these really cool old docks for the Nintendo 3DS. I actually don't know if you can buy these anymore. I don't know if this came with a 3DS, but I just had one, and it's super cool. And then of course the Wii U charging dock that is not plugged in. But let's go ahead and take a look at the back here. So I will go ahead and put a reference image up of how, when I first designed this, I thought it was gonna be laid out like. And it's pretty darn close to what I had imagined. Using some command strips, I have mounted two power strips to the left back side of this shelf. And I made sure to get, it was really, really important to me that I could get power switches that had a master switch for turning all of the power switch off, strip off. And then I had individual switches for things that I don't need the power for currently. So I have them all on right now, but that's a really nice way to save energy when it's not being used. If I'm only using one console or I just need to charge my controllers, it gives me a more modular control over where the energy is going. And then both of these are fed into this box, which is where, I'll just keep this open, which is where the main power strip is. And then this just leads over to the wall. On the right side, we kind of have mirrored two HDMI switchers. So these are 5-port HDMI switchers. They're rated for 4K at 60 hertz, and they are auto switching, which is really important, because if you don't get auto switching switchers, every time you want to play a different console, you are going to have to either go over and click a little button, or you'll have, 2 or 3 different remotes just for switching between all of your retro consoles, which is a nightmare. So for anything that outputs HDMI, the Wii U, the PlayStation 4, all newer consoles, they just go straight into these input switches. And then we have the output switch from both of these feeding straight into the entertainment box that feeds to the TV. The only other thing that I have on here that is important to note is this. This is a scanline converter. I use this for the GameCube, which I have a special modified GameCube that can, or it's not special modified, it's just a type of GameCube that can output RGB. And then I have this SCART cable that is going to my Nintendo 64. And both of those are fed into here, and then this outputs HDMI, and that HDMI is just being fed into one of these switches. So I have both my retro consoles hooked up to here. That's outputting to HDMI, which is going to the TV. That is basically the overview of the shelf itself. As you can see, my cable management isn't amazing. It could always have room for improvement, but when you're constantly moving things around, it just tends to get a little messy sometimes. But I'm very happy. The way that I've done cable management is twofold. I've used command strips to put down the power switches, the HDMI ports, switches, power strips, HDMI switches, and the scanline converter. And then for some of the more tedious cable management, one thing that's brilliant about this shelving unit is there is a gap specifically designed for cable management that is from the very back. And this is just perfect. I can feed everything through the back, and it can immediately go into where it needs to go. Down here, I was using some sticky clips. They're like 3M adhesive, sticky clips, but I found that these do not stick very well. The adhesive on them, just due to all the temperature, due to all the temperature on that this is generating, sometimes it can get loose, and it can eventually kind of needs to be reapplied. A more kind of permanent solution that works really well is these little cable management nails. They're just these C-shaped plastic holders, and they have these tiny little nails, and you just hit them into the wood. and that way your cable's kind of permanently there. This one's really nice because I use it for managing the cables to the controllers on top. Another thing that I wanted to make sure is I wanted to make sure that this could accommodate not only the consoles, but all of the controllers necessary for these retro gaming consoles as well. There was a video that I watched of someone else having shown off their retro build, and they recommended these. And these are perfect for me. They don't look tacky. I think they look really nice. This beige kind of wooden dowel, or beige color thing with a wooden dowel and the string. It kind of fits the aesthetic of the interior design of this home. So I just simply put a little nail right there and hung them. And so I have spots for my GameCube controllers and my SNES classic MIDI controllers. And then I just have the same thing for the other side for the Wii, Nintendo 64. Yeah, I think this is just Wii and Nintendo 64. So, everything is plugged up into these switchers, and then we notice that the outputs of these cable switchers are running to the entertainment, along with an extra extension cord for power. So I'm gonna show you what I have set up in my entertainment. You can see that on the back of my television, there is only one HDMI. Which is nice because, again, this whole thing I wanted to be able to easily switch between consoles without having to pick up a remote, change the input setting of the TV, you know, change the input of the specific HDMI switch. I want it to be all automatic. And there's a few hiccups, but it's mostly working well. It's just that I don't have enough switches, really. Underneath here, I have a PC, a gaming PC, that I use for playing games up on the big screen. I'm not gonna go into details about that, but this is the power that is fed from that box back there into here. And I just have it, I really need to replace this with a power switch. I think this is a little janky and maybe a little unsafe. Also, I don't know what these are doing here. This is just junk. But one is going to power the TV, and one is going to power my computer. Then finally, the HDMI cable, this black cable that is coming into, feeds to a small HDMI switch. So there are two main HDMI switches on the back of the shelf. Both of the outputs of those two go into this smaller HDMI switch, which has my things like my computer, my Fire Stick, and so the caveat is the only thing I need to switch between is the HDMI for this. So I just have one input on my TV, and then I just know that 1 is the Fire Stick, 2 is the computer, and 3 and 4 are HDMI switches. So I can find a way to probably make this automated if I just replace this with a automatic switcher, but right now it's been working fine, and high quality switchers are a little expensive. So that's it. I'm gonna go ahead and do a demonstration of powering on and playing a game. So we're gonna put this back. Oh, and by the way, these are casters. I custom installed these really cheap casters that I got from Amazon so that I can move this, which makes all the difference in the world. It is incredible to be able to move this shelf around with ease. I definitely recommend if you're doing a retro console, you are so curious, aren't you? That you have whatever you're having on wheels. And they're really small too, so you don't really see the wheels. They don't look kind of cheap and junky. They look very nice with this beautiful dark oak color. So I'm gonna go and let's go ahead and say we wanna play some classic SNES Mini. So I have these mini cables. Let me see if I can just get this out of the way. I bought for super cheap nunchuck Joy-Con, or nunchuck extender for the Wii. And because this uses the same output, it works perfectly fine. So I always felt that these controllers that they came with, the wire was way too short unless you're right at the console. So these are really nice. I'm sure they add some latency and people might, you know, have better recommendations, but they work fine for me. So I'm gonna get my cable, I'm gonna plug it in here, and then I am going to turn on my TV. It is just set to just my input that I've labeled consoles. I'm gonna go over here, turn the power on, and we'll see the totally normal process for the Nintendo Switch Classic Mini. Definitely nothing's been done to this to tamper with this at all. That's just how it normally sets up. And you can see audio and videos coming through. And then I can just play what I want to play. And then usually, you know, if I want to play the Switch, I can just dock the Switch and it will automatically detect that there is an input coming from the Switch. And I'll get to play some Switch games. I've been surprised by how much I have gone back and really enjoyed the library of games on the Nintendo GameCube. I think that console is really underrated in terms of the game library. So I only have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I only have 6 consoles. I know people who are really collecting probably have a lot more. And so if you get a lot more, you'd probably want to get a taller shelf. You'd also probably want to start thinking if you're going to have multiple consoles running at the same time, how hot it's going to get. Again, I love this unit because it has such an open space. It never feels like anything's overheating or getting too hot, just with the amount of space that it has. I hope that was helpful. And I really have nothing else to say. This has been like a dream project of mine for a really long time. When I finally moved into a new place, the first thing I wanted to do was have all my consoles out in the open, easy to reach, easy to play, and not just locked away in some box like they've been for 5 years. And every time I want to play a classic game, I kind of grumble and say, oh, I wonder if it's on emulator. You can play all these games on emulator, but there's just something about the original hardware that's so charming, and that experience just takes me back to being a kid again. That's all for now. Thank you for watching, and say bye. Kitty, kitty, bye.